Kieran is here. But before we get started, I want to emphasize that this AMA is meant to be a mature, open discussion about the future of Illuvium. Everything we bring up here is aimed for what's best for the project, not taking in personal feelings here. And none of this will be a personal attack on the team. If you're here listening to this, it's more than likely that we all share the same goals and we all want Illuvium to succeed. Now, personally, I know for a fact that at the current stages of the way Illuvium is, I feel like something personally has to change just due to the recent events. I wanted to highlight this in the AMA, hence why we're having this podcast. And there's been some communication issues, there's been some marketing issues, some game problems and everything else in between. But my goal for this is to have a healthy conversation and get to the other side of this and hopefully have some sort of change happen or put Illuvium in a direction that is better off than what it already is. So let's see how it goes. But Scoriox, if you want to jump into the questions, go for it.
I thought we'd start it off right off the bat and just get straight into it. So each season of the Illuvium Open Beta is set to distribute 30,000 ILV tokens, which is close to $1 million at today's prices, higher if ILV goes on a run of some kind. We have seen revenue from fuel sales fall short of that thus far. Based on these metrics, how do you assess the impact of the airdrop? Speaking of revenue, it looks to be about $274,000 every single month. What do you talk to us about the airdrop? Talk to us about the future plans based on these metrics.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me on again. I appreciate it. So I think the airdrop, without a doubt, it needs some recalibrating. There's definitely ways that we can better incentivize people to play the game, and that's at its core what the purpose of those ILV tokens are for. So we've done a little bit of that, and the main focus has been around disincentivizing the bots. That was the biggest gripe that everyone had when we first launched, and even prior to launching, that was the hottest topic. It was all about we want to stop the bots, and we've very much done that, and to a certain extent to the detriment of our revenue. We saw over the last 10 days, we were averaging about 5 ETH that we were getting in each day, and it's now halved to about 2.5 because, as we know, the way that our system is set up and the economy, bots can play, but they also need to spend like everyone else. However, we're trying to get to the point where it's just normal gamers that are playing. And so we've introduced a bunch of different systems, which has meant that we have hardly any bots in the system now. And obviously they can get better and whatever. And we're going to need to, that's a continuous thing that we need to counteract. But that was our main focus. Another part of that was the missions and the milestones. I'm not 100% in agreement with where we're at for season 2. I think what we're going to need to do is take stock for season 3, probably announce that we are going to pause season 3 now so people can get prepared for what that's going to look like, and do a full overhaul of that. I think a lot more leaderboard integration needs to happen from across all of the different game modes, because that incentivizes competitive play. And then just generally, I think the milestones that we have can be a lot better, and certainly the missions as well. So from where I'm at, I think we definitely need to take stock. We've got enough data now, and it's definitely not optimized. So that's going to be the plan moving forward. But now that season 2's already started, obviously we can introduce things like leaderboards, and they're on their way. They're being built at the moment. But yeah, I think a complete overhaul is in need.
So just to confirm, season 2 will play itself out, and then as soon as season 3 was meant to start, the airdrops will be on pause for season 3 onwards until some sort of changes happen.
Unless we can get those obviously, my first priority when I get back is going to be looking at what new mechanics and systems we can introduce to incentivize people utilizing that ILV. A lot of that is going to be tournament related as well. So if we can do that in the next 3 weeks and have it ready for season 3, then there'll be no reason for a delay. But I definitely want to give people the heads up that potentially that all of that stuff that we're looking to introduce may not be ready for season 3. And if that is the case, we definitely will delay it.
So moving on from that, and many of you might know that on my Twitter, I posted a question. I said, what do you want to ask Kieran? So many of the questions here are coming directly from the community. And the first one we've got from the community here is from Feldylocks, where he says that the community is clearly concerned about Illuvium's overall finances, runway, and all the rest of it. What will Illuvium do to actually prevent bankruptcy in the future if that becomes necessary?
The age-old question. I wonder if other protocols get this get this question a lot. I think it's obviously a hot topic, and something that we've been able to get in front of every single time that the community is asked. And we've been quite successful at raising capital, and our investors are very confident in the team that we've built and what we can deliver over the next few years. So like every time this question comes up, there's a multitude of things. The best thing that we can achieve is reaching a point where we're generating more revenue than our expenditure. If we reach that break-even point anytime in the next 6 months, then there's not going to be a need for any capital raising. There's not going to be a need for other measures like reducing the team size and stuff like that, even though we're always on top of things like that, where a lot of stuff we've front loaded in terms of the art departments and building a lot of our systems and contracts and stuff like that. So we're not sitting here saying, hey, if you're in Illuvium, regardless of anything, like we're still a very agile startup. So there are many levers which we can pull, but the biggest one for us right now is generating revenue so we can hit break even.
So I think right now we're hitting around that. Is it Layla or whoever does these posts? I think there's a 10-day average. We have that screenshot that we put up. We're sitting around 200,000-300,000, give or take, for the month. Obviously, best case scenario is to become net positive. Do you see that happening in the next sort of 6 months, or is it more of a year out, do you think, that you're aiming for?
There's a couple of things there, right? Like the market right now is at all-time lows in terms of GameFi. Like sentiment is at a very, very low point. That also affects the amount of new players that are coming into the system, because crypto isn't seen as the cool thing right now, and it's not really a hot topic, and I don't think it will be until after the election. It's hurting us in two ways. The amount of money people are spending is lower, and the amount of new players that are coming into the Web3 ecosystem is far less. Now, if that changes, and sentiment, as we know, in this space can change rapidly, then like we saw 4 years ago, revenues can potentially go from 10 to 100x where they are at now. I think the most important thing there is to be able to actually say that you're generating revenue, right? Otherwise, it's just pure speculation. The difference between us and 99% of other studios out there is that we are generating revenue, and if you take that idea of whatever revenue we're generating now, when market forces come back and they're positive, they're going to be some multiplier more. Then you start to look at it and it's like, okay, we've reached break even just naturally, just purely on the fact that ETH price has gone up and new players are coming into the system. So there's a chance that happens, but obviously we're not focused on the market. We never have been. we never will be. We're focused on what can we control and do better and make the games better, which in turn makes people want to spend more money, and they're happy with the content they're receiving. And so that's our focus. So even though, I guess my point there is, even though there's the potential that things just turn around and we're generating way more revenue just naturally, that's not what we're sort of we're hoping for. We're hoping to introduce a whole bunch of new stuff across all the different game modes, which makes people more happy to spend more money.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I just want to dive a little bit more on the funding side of things. With you know, we've already got a bunch of investors over the past 4 years. You've got seed rounds and everything else. Do you speak to them on a regular basis? What are they saying from their perspective? Are they trusting you with the leadership of how this is going? Is there concerning conversations behind closed doors? And then leading on to that, do you think the numbers you're seeing, or what you have planned over the next sort of 3 months, you're confident enough that you could raise, whether it's end of this year, next year, mid next year, depending on the market conditions, if you need to? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, look, I haven't had a single conversation with a single negative conversation with an investor that's come in either last round, the round previously, our sort of legacy investors. I have not had a single negative conversation with them. And I think that the important thing there is they're a lot less emotional than your typical retail investor, and they need to be, right? Like, it's their job. They take on a very large risk portfolio. And so certainly I don't think we're at the stage where we're thinking actively, hey, we want to raise some more money right now. Our main focus is how do we get the games better? The features that we have on the roadmap to introduce are made in a way so we generate more revenue, and that's our goal, right? Like, if we need to in the future raise more money, am I worried about it? Absolutely not. Not in the slightest. And I think by now we've really proven that we can raise money. I think by now there's a lot of people out there that want to say, you know, use the B word, oh, they're going to go bankrupt, or they're spending a little bit more, or around the fact that now they're spending marketing dollars. And so let's take the last month's report of how much expenditure there was, and let's multiply that out, and that's their realistic runway now. Like, there's all little ways where you can paint it so it looks grim, but I think we've shown over the last 3 to 4 years that we're pretty confident this thing isn't going to go away. We always have the backstop where a lot of people are like, oh, he just says that and whatever. But myself, Aaron, we're sitting on a ton of tokens where if we need to, we can sell them ourselves, and we'll use that as runway. And then there'll be people who are like, he won't do that, he's greedy. And it's like, okay, look at it logically. If we're going to go bankrupt, all of my tokens will be worth 0. So wouldn't it be beneficial for me to sell 25% of my tokens so we have enough runway to get to profitability when, you know, we're building out these new games? You can look at it and be sensible, or you can look at it and be a major pessimist or even borderline troll. I'll take it, you know, take it however you want. But yeah, I'm very confident that we're going to be okay. Trust me on that.
So it sounds like the runway is not an issue in your mind. I think there's a bit of community sentiment that is it's a concerning thought for obvious reasons. And by the sounds of things, for the next 6 months for Illuvium and Illuvium Labs, you're focusing more so just on the game, making it really good, making it fun, to bring in more players, and hopefully the market turns. And even if it doesn't, that you'll be confident enough that you can still make a raise in the future. Have you spoken to the investors? Obviously, whenever you have your meetings, the first month has happened, the launch has happened. Pros, cons. Obviously, investors think long term, especially with these VCs. People, you know, they think more like 3-5 years or so. But is there a sentiment there of what they thought of the first month or 6 weeks of launch?
I've had a few conversations with different investors. I spoke to Framework briefly and a couple of others from the last round, and they get it, right? Like, the fact that we're generated nearly $500,000 in revenue across all of the different streams in that first month. They look at that, and anyone who's been in this space for more than 5 years, if you understand cycles and what that would translate to in a good market, you look at that and you're like, okay, they're probably going to be generating around that 5 million mark, and they're still in beta, and they still have a ton of runway to ship a huge amount of new features, which are going to make the games much more sticky and much more appealing to spend money on. We're good, right? Like it's not that hard to look at an investment like that and say, they've got a working product, they've got an incredible team, they've got a team that is highly resilient in terms of how many people we've had here. We've had, in the last 2 years, we've only had 12 people resign, right? So we're probably going to get into this later, but I saw the disgruntled employee that came out and said all of these bad things about Illuvium and whatever, but the reality is that person is the minority, right? There are people that have left, and there are people that we've fired over time, and the reality is it's cutthroat. We're a startup. We're trying to navigate through one of the longest bear markets in crypto history, whilst also building something with a colossal amount of products and games and things that we need to do. Yes, every now and again we have to cut through the fat, and that's the harsh reality. And I don't think that person's going to leave and say, like, some say they're amazing. You look at someone like Nick, he's really positive and whatever, but there are other situations where, unfortunately, when you have an organization of 150 plus people, there are going to be people that are disgruntled and whatever. But I look at what we built and how you look at the last 2 years, only like 14, 15 people have resigned. That's pretty good retention. That shows that we're probably not egomaniacs sitting here hiring people saying, you just sit here looking like you're doing something. Your ideas don't matter. And we dictate everything that happens across every single facet of the company. It doesn't add up, So that's my thoughts on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there, and you're right. That if there's not that many people resigning, and those people, it's so easy for them to be a minority and to take that out of context, that it's just not healthy for anyone to really think that way all that much. But it's still good to question a lot of these elements of stuff, and we will actually touch on that again later on in the talk, I think. But for now, let's get on to a question from Dexter. Has said, why has the community communication been extremely lacking to non-existent in the past few weeks? And what is being done to address it? Now, we did see that post recently from Stuart and the team, and that article all about the minting issues, the technical back end. I loved that thing so much. I thought it was a fantastic piece of information. That being said, many people are still disgruntled about it because it didn't really cover a lot of the stuff that they're particularly upset about. The lack of announcement for season 2, for example. What is being done to fix that in the future?
So, I mean, look, basically non-existent. Again, I love our community, very passionate, very extreme. We've had 14 announcements in the last 3 weeks. And, but I will say I have been traveling, and, we had the Gamescom integration, which was, 12 hours a day or whatever it was with Samsung. Then I needed to take a week off. I was literally hitting burnout point, like going into release was insane. Like it was just utterly insane. And it was like that for literally everyone. So I know the ideal would have been, make sure everything's good for 6 months post-release. We didn't have that luxury. People were literally at breaking point. And with that, I also needed a break. And part of the issue there is, as you know, I run marketing, and a lot of those announcement type stuff where a lot of other people, while I was away, are more in the weeds about, building what new features, what does production look like, what are the estimates, what are the timelines. They're not thinking like I do, where it's like, okay, we need to inform the community. Otherwise, they're going to start thinking, whoa, they're usually very transparent. Now they're not. What's happening there? And so I put my hand up there. I should have been a little bit better and had things in place. It won't happen again. We've now got a few more resources in the marketing team, which have joined over the last 6 weeks. They're now in a position where if I'm not there, there's someone else that can take on that role and responsibility to ensure that the community is being informed about everything. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't like it was non-existent or anything like that. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I get it. The community, it's a very volatile time in the moment, and communication and transparency is key. And we definitely dropped the ball. But yeah, you can rest assured that it won't happen again.
Yeah, that's fair. I sort of want to bring up something a little bit more negative, but a little bit more deep diving on that, with just the objectives over the years with Illuvium that were promised, and I think they sort of fell short, whether this is due to market conditions or, we all know life happens, or the, team members don't hit dates and XYZ. But there's a bit of a list here of things that Illuvium hasn't hit over the years, which is, I think in 2021, there was something written in the documents that Illuvium would be complete by 2023. It's now the end of 2024. We don't have a July or August burn report. There was 2 weeks after launch, there was meant to be an alluvial combat video. Blog post used to be once a month from Aaron. Once a month, there used to be a video about Illuvium. Whoever edited that, that's also stopped. The communication we just spoke about then. Megacities was about 6 weeks after launch, which is about now. I think the idea of this is, just from the community sentiment, is there's things that are being said, or obviously dates are very hard to hit in gaming. And I've spoken to a few game designers and CEOs recently, and also over the last couple of years. There's a lot of false promises with dates hitting, but is there any way that Illuvium can do better and start delivering on things that we speak about on AMAs or announced on Discord? And how does Illuvium just do better in general about hitting these things that are promised to the community? Because when they're not hit, the community then asks questions going, well, hang on, this was meant to happen, or that was meant to happen. Do you have something maybe in the works, or an idea that could help portray the communication to the community about all these things that were just mentioned?
I've mentioned this on AMAs multiple times. I've mentioned it in the chat, in Discord. There is a way to solve that, and it's by pushing out dates. Instead of us saying we're going to be able to do things in 3 months, which gets the team all locked in, and they're thinking, we've got to smash this out and do this as fast as possible, we give them 12 months. Right, and then people go to work and they think, okay, I got 4 days to do this, not one. That, and I'm not saying that we've got that culture. We've got the exact opposite, and the reason is because we've been in that feverish build mode where we have short dates to hit, and sometimes we miss them. But at the same time, we're delivering product much faster than pretty much any other gaming studio on earth, delivering 3 games in the space of 4 years. I've never seen that done in the industry, whether it be mainstream or not. And I would say one of the reasons that we're doing that is, instead of us saying, yeah, we'll take 10 years to build out the ecosystem, we say we'll do it in 3 years, right? And if that means that we end up hitting it in 4 or 5, we've shaved off 5 years. So we're in a much better situation. We did it with spending a lot less money, but it does come with the fact that there are some delays. So there is a solution there, and obviously we can get better at estimating things, and I think we have. And just on a couple of points that you just mentioned there, Megacities was 8 to 12 weeks after launch, so we're still within that, and I still think we will hit that. That was just one thing. The dev blogs that Aaron used to write, he's actually got one in draft now, and I just read it myself, so that's coming out. There will be a bunch more communication, but in terms of where we're up to and how quickly we've been able to build what we have, I think we've done a pretty good job. And I'm not saying perfect by any stretch. I'm not saying the games are even close to being that mainstream ready that I talk about. But the baseline that we have with 3 different games and all of the other applications that sit around inside the ecosystem is pretty insane. And I think the reason for that is we put really, really harsh dates on things, and we have high expectations of everyone that works with us. And it's just a really good environment that tests everyone and produces the best we can.
So basically, the answer would be the reason why these dates aren't getting hit, in summary, is we can say it'll be in 1 year, but we try our best to shorten it down to 3 to 6 months. And unfortunately, that sort of encourages the team to go faster, quicker, work longer hours. And unfortunately, these things happen. So it's more of a trying to speed run the whole process of building a game. Instead of it taking 10 years to make a AAA game, we're trying to do it in, say, 3 to 6 years or something like that.
Essentially, yes. And the trouble there is it's sort of a double-edged sword, because on one end, I'm trying to manage the team that we have who are saying, hey, these dates are unrealistic. It's making our we're having to work crazy hours constantly. We're heading towards burnout, and it's how do you manage that on that side? And then on the other side, you have people in the community who are like, fuck these workers. How are they not, why do they keep on missing these dates? This is insane. They're terrible, blah, blah, blah. And you've got someone you're trying to shield them from that, because they're doing a really good job that is much faster than what is usually realistic. And on the other side of it, they've got people who are like, I'm extremely unhappy about this and all of this kind of stuff. So the only way to placate both parties is to essentially say, you know what, we're going to put GST on all of our dates and give ourselves much more time. But I personally feel, and this is probably where it comes from, I personally feel uncomfortable about doing that, because I feel like if we can do something fast, we should do it fast, right? Like that is, the last 15 years of my life has been in startups where you don't know where your next dollar is going to come from. That type of mentality is what we built. And, I don't know, maybe it's wrong, maybe it's right, but that's just the way that we work.
Yeah, and you spoke about the team there. Obviously, we don't see everything behind closed doors. This is just things that we see from whether it's Discord or Twitter and everything else. How is the team doing? They went on a break. I think a lot of people are back now. How do they feel? Because in companies like, if you look at Google and YouTube and all these things, it's all about culture. So if we walked around and we asked all the, I don't know, say the devs and the artists, like how do they feel about the sentiment of Illuvium right now, and how are they finding the culture within the business or the company?
So I would say for the most part that everyone is in a position now. They understand the vision that we have in front of us and what we need to achieve. The work is without a doubt not even close to done. We're just at the first step now. And that's a high pressure situation for some. They've been working ridiculously hard for the last 2-3 years. And I think if the market was in a better place, maybe it would take a little bit of that pressure off, but it's not. And we need to live in the confines of reality. And so I think they would be cautiously optimistic about the next 6 months. They know how many new features we're delivering across each of the different game modes. They're extremely excited about that. And but they're also really proud of what they built. Delivering $500,000 in revenue in your first month in a time where this space is so reliant on market conditions. And I know people are going to say, oh, that's a cop-out, but that's literally why investors who are seasoned in this space for the last 10 years will look at it and say, we're not worried, right? Versus someone who's like, oh my God, this volatility, I can't handle it, and I think the reality is we are where we are. We've still got a lot of work to do. And I think you would go around Illuvium and for the vast majority, they're very, very happy to work here because we give them the autonomy. They're the experts. right? Like they know what they're doing. They built countless games across many, many different platforms, and that's their expertise, and we let them do that.
Yeah, so continuing on the entire team and culture and everything like that, we do need to return to the John comment. And Mabsy asked for your thoughts on the comment, but I want to take it a step further. I think the big reason we need to talk about it is because it went, let's say, viral, and that's the reason Sam and Wagner talked about it on Gamified Pod as well, is this thing... Lots of people have seen it now, and they're talking about it when they talk about Illuvium. And so we really need to cover this topic off. So let's have a look at it now. There are a few really key notes in here, but I think Sam wanted to read out the entire thing.
Yeah, I may take that back now that I look at how large it is. So I think everyone, yeah, if you haven't seen it, it's on the screen, or you can go to the comments. There's two comments from potential devs. It's not confirmed that they are. They're obviously on anonymous accounts, so we're just taking the word for it. And obviously, Kieran can clear some things up here. But the general overview is, well, I won't go through all of it, but you can see that these are devs that used to work for Illuvium. They're unhappy. They're saying that there's no direction. It's from the top down. But Kieran, you've read this. You've seen it. It's all around. As small as Web3 is, it went a little bit, I wouldn't say viral, but it hit a lot of people within the community, and people were talking about this on some spaces and some tweets and everything else. And I'd love to get your sentiment on the devs that, well, supposedly devs that have wrote this, and just get a good overview of what's going on, because I've got personally a lot of messages and even voice notes and everything about it. I have nothing to do with the team, but would love to hear your take on it, and then we can sort of, deep dive on this.
Look, again, we're an agile startup. They're in an ideal world, we wouldn't want to get rid of anyone, but we have to hire fast and we have to fire fast. If someone isn't working out, and if they're not fitting into the culture, and if they're not bringing their value, we don't have the luxury of someone sitting dormant in a massive, 10,000 plus company. We have to find that person and say, hey, you're not bringing the value. Work with them to try and get up to speed. And if they aren't getting up to speed, unfortunately, that's it. We need to move on, and we need to find someone else who can do that role, whether that be someone internally, so we're saving costs there, or replacing them. And it's not like this is a crazy concept where a employee has left a company or been fired from a company. And to be clear, I have no idea who this person is. I have an idea, but I don't know for sure. But I just know that if you feel like, hey, I was bringing a whole bunch of value, and I had really amazing ideas and whatever, there is never a situation where Aaron and I get together and say, we don't like this person. To be clear, there are 17 heads that work inside of our organization that have all been here for 3+ years. There is a conversation with multiple different parties, whoever that person would be working directly under and indirectly under, and those conversations are had. If after those conversations are had, and after we've tried to work with this person to get better and deliver value, if they're not, they unfortunately can't stay at Illuvium, right? Like, that's the reality. Now, some people take that well, and they go off and they find another job and they get it, and that's all good. Other people, not so much. And I get it, right? Like, I mean, personally, I wouldn't do that, but it's like totally in their power to say, I'm annoyed. Why didn't they find me valuable? But this idea, the thing that I really don't agree with is, if we were these egomaniacs that were sitting here for the last 4 years telling people this is how to do your job, even though 95% of the skills that we've hired for, we don't have any skills in, do you think we would only have 14 people resigning in the last 2 years? And yes, I know they cite that there's less jobs out there in the gaming industry and all of this kind of stuff. But it doesn't matter. I speak to these guys. They've made a lot of money throughout their careers. They're in, they love working at Illuvium. They love their teammates. And if their bosses were sitting there, there's not even a construct. We're not even sitting here like, I'm your boss or anything like that's just not the culture that we have. But if we were, I would expect 50 people to leave, 100 people to leave. And you know what I find the funniest about the Star Atlas dude talking about this? Here's a funny story. So we had two guys, two developers that went and worked for us, and then they were sold the Star Atlas dream, and we lost them. So they were part of those two resignations. And we were like, wow. And that was a huge thing. I remember Grant hit me up and was like, hey, this person's left. They're going to Star Atlas. And I was like, wow. And we didn't say anything to him. It was wish you all the best. Hope it works out. No worries, right? Like there's going to be other devs that we can replace them with, whatever. Then it was, 6 months later, and I was speaking to Andre, and I was like, hey, Andre's one of our head developers. And I was like, hey, we need to find more resources for the overworld. We've got to get so many different things in, multiplayer, story, quests, all of these things. We need to find some more devs. And he was like, well, actually, we've got these two guys that used to work at Star Atlas, and they came across and whatever. And he's like, but are you like upset at them? And I was like, no, I don't give a fuck if they've worked at Star Atlas or whatever. I think it's funny if they want to come back. And they've come back, and I haven't spoken to them directly about this, so I don't have any, and I don't really give a shit, to be completely honest. But from what I hear, they're very, very happy back at Illuvium. And this isn't something where I'm going to go onto a space and start trying to I just don't care about Star Atlas, right? Like, I just don't care. I don't care about any of the founders that were looking to shit talk us and say that our game's terrible and whatever like that. We are aware. We listen to community feedback. We listen to our players' feedback. We know that there are multiple gaps that we need to fix up. We're still in beta. We get all of that. I don't have time to go and talk shit about other companies and evaluate them. I've got too much to do here. We all have too much to do here. So, and to be honest, you're taking a page out of my fucking playbook by hitching your bandwagon like we did to Axie, which worked out really, really well for us. It put us in a position where we're on the map. There's so many games out there where they're sitting at like the 20 mil market cap that no one really gives a shit about. And they're trying to do that with another game now. And all power to you. Good luck. Enjoy the fucking ride, because it is very, very rocky. And that's all I'll say to you. But I know what these people are doing. I know why they're doing it. They look at our valuation and they say, we want to take investors from Illuvium. We're going to do things better. We're going to do things and revolutionize everything. I get it, right? Like, I absolutely do. And if anything, it's just made me open my eyes to Axie and say, you know what? They did exceptionally well. They probably, again, making games, not their specialty, but community building with Ronan. Look at the shit that they're doing. They're killing it, right? They're killing it. They've stepped into their zone. Do you think those guys give a flying fuck what Star Atlas says on an AMA to some dude? Like, no. It's not even in, like, deliver your games first, actually build up your own community, and then you get the right to talk shit about someone else. And, as I said, I went down that road personally myself. I did it. You're not doing anything that I'm like, whoa, what's he doing? So when people are like, do you care? Are you going to say that? It's like, I don't give a flying fuck. I've got so much work to do in front of me. We've got it all laid out with us. We've got a foundation. We actually have 80,000 players in our ecosystem across the 3 games. We just need to make our games better, right? Like, that is the critical thing. Make our games better. And that's all we're focused on. That's it.
I think that's really good, but I want to touch on one point that you discussed briefly. The chat, some people in the chat were saying that you didn't answer heaps of the points in the comment there, but I think you answered most of them. But there is one in particular that I think they really want to hear about, and this person exemplifies it quite well. He says, would Kieran say that his family's inexperience with game development caused for delays or bad decision making? One of the comments in one of those comments on John's video was about Aaron not having any experience in game design before starting at Illuvium and things like that. Can you just talk in general about if you think inexperience in game design has caused issues with Illuvium, what you're doing to move forward, and maybe you think there's plenty of experience with the leadership team?
100%. Absolutely. I definitely believe that. There's been so many learnings that we've had over the last 4 years. And if we looked at it now, if I was to say, Aaron, how do you think you go designing a game now versus 4 years ago? I think he's in a much, much, much better state, right? To go and achieve that. But that's in the past, right? Like we can sit there but we also don't shy away from that. The amount of times that I've seen Aaron put his hand up and say, I fucked that up, we should have designed this better, is countless times, right? Like same thing when I fuck something up. We're not shy to say we don't do anything wrong, not at all. Maybe it's the fact that we're Australian, it's the way that we sort of go about talking or whatever. And but no, we definitely could have done things better if we had all our time again with the exact knowledge that we've acquired over the last 4 years. Of course, we would do things better. It's not even close. That is without a doubt. I can guarantee you, yes, across the board, every single department would have been better.
I just want to touch on about 3 questions or so within just this article. One is, I think someone mentioned in the comments that someone told me that Grant and yourself, or Grant in general, was a co-founder. If no one knows, he was the art director, I want to say, or something like that. Is there a reason why Grant has stepped down? Is there a reason? Is there bad blood between you? I've seen some articles here and there personally, and I think some of the community members would just like to know, whatever you're willing to share. It's obviously a family thing, but is there a reason why Grant is not part of Illuvium anymore?
We couldn't agree on too many things, right? And I, take the family side out of it. If this would have been the case with another co-founder, where two of the founding members of the team just can't agree on the direction and how we want to do things, so we agreed to disagree, and he stepped down, and that's it, right? I don't think it's necessary to or reasonable to say what family squabbles have you had and give us the specifics and anything like that. It's no secret. Grant and I have had many heated conversations, some public, some not. And, we just agreed that was it. We're going to, go our separate ways, which is totally fine.
Yeah. Okay. So just circling back to, I guess, inexperience that has come up a couple of times. You have answered it briefly, but I think yourself used to run a burger app or something. You've done multiple startups in the past. I believe Aaron was a tennis coach at one point. Now you boys have sort of come together and you're running a gaming studio. Now, there's no experience before this in a gaming studio, not that I know of, unless someone worked on a game or something. But now that Illuvium is launched and it's entering sort of its next phase, would the founders consider bringing in some sort of industry veteran, like perhaps a CEO or a COO from a company like Blizzard or Riot or Epic Games, someone that can help bring this vision to life, who has 10 plus years experience in creating games? This person could obviously offer invaluable experience of running a studio while giving you guys, I guess, whether it's a break or just a different role. Would you be open to this idea, or you guys still want to run things at the helm?
Of course I would. I've said from the very, very beginning that if at some point the community come together and write an IIP and say, hey, this crazy Kieran guy who's an egomaniac or whatever other nice things that people want to say, if there was an IIP to remove me as the CEO or to put me in some other place or whatever, and bring someone that has that 10 years of experience, of course I would do it. We're a decentralized studio. That's what I signed up for, and that that would be it. It's totally fine. And Aaron has said the exact same thing, right? Like if that's the way, the beauty of it being a community driven project is that can happen, right? And I don't know, like as one of the largest token holders, I don't know if it's what we need now, but again, I'm inexperienced in bringing in new experience, right? Like at that type of level. And so I would be cautious about, my own opinion on this. And obviously there's bias there, but we've got very, very, very good people that are working with us. And we know that there are a ton of gaps across the 3 games that we have. And we've got a big plan to deliver these features over the next 6 to 12 months. And we'll be ready for when things start turning around in the market. And that's it. If things don't work out, it's certainly not going to be a situation where I up and leave the project or anything like that. I'm 100% committed. As I said, it would be ridiculous of me to not commit my own tokens to it. Like there's so many different things that we've shown over the last 3-4 years that if Illuvium wants me and Aaron and whatever to keep on running the project, we're here for it. Of course we are.
Okay. Yeah. And then the last question I have about the articles, and then we can sort of move forward. We see some of the comments wanting to move on to different things, but if it's correct, if you could bring up the dev talk and also the random person who commented in Discord. We're not going to name any names and out anyone here either, but there's been some talks about you, I guess it's all co-founders or maybe just yourself or Aaron, I'm not sure here, you can clear this up for us, that you pay yourselves 20,000 USD per month, which to me is absolutely insane. Plus you have the 400,000 tokens. And can you give us a bit of an overview of this comment here that was from Discord, and also that some of these things were brought up in the dev comments as well? As you've said, you guys are a startup. I think if you do the math of it, that's like 240K per month per year USD, which an average startup wage, I believe, is around that 100, 150. It just feels like if this is true, or if this is the payment, it feels like that money could have went to 3 or 4 more devs, meaning pushing the product forward, pushing Illuvium forward. And then, we could have had, I guess, better results or quicker features come out. But I would love for you to speak on the side of the $20,000 per month USD.
Yeah, so it's not 20,000. It's just over 16,000. And when you look at how many hours that we put in, around that 70 to 80 hours a week we work. And on top of that, I'm the CEO of a company that is 4 years old now and has been, previously valued at $20 billion. It's a little bit less than that. It's a little bit more than that, like standard salary zone for a startup. But what does that work out to be? Something like $55 an hour based on how much we're putting in. And, so I don't know. It might, and I think to Aaron's credit, he just recently or 3 months ago said he's not going to be taking a wage. I don't know how long that's going to go for, but he hasn't taken a wage in like 3 months. So that's $75,000 saving, or what? Or not 75,000, about 50,000 in savings. I recently gave out 14,000 of my tokens to the team, so we didn't need to pay out bonuses. You could probably translate that to about $400,000. So, there's 2 years of my salary right there. So therefore I'm working for $25 an hour. I don't know. People can comment on that, but I don't think it's too bad.
Okay. So that's correct.
Sorry.
And so, I don't know, like S Judd being like, it's not 16K. Like, yes, it is, dude. Yes, it is. Either I'm
just
flat out just sitting here lying and this dumbass knows more than I do with my own salary, or I don't know, but it's shit like that that really, really, really annoys the crap out of me. It's just like someone just like, I know, you don't. Cool.
So we'll get to the next thing. There was something that happened quite a few weeks ago now that really rocked the boat in terms of Illuvium. As you know, the landowners are very vocal and care a lot about this project. But the thing I want to talk about briefly is the team cut Illuvium Zero supply by about 75%. And this did manage to temporarily stabilize fuel prices, but now they are dropping once again. Would you if you cut the fuel supply all over again, it would make the game unplayable, especially for a tier 2, tier 1, even a little bit to a tier 3. So if fuel price keeps dropping like a lot, what would be your new proposed solution?
So I'm actually penning an open letter to landholders at the moment. And the reason is I think this needs to be a formal sort of communication that goes out to all of those people that invested into land, because and I won't go into it too much because I want people to read this letter, and it's coming from someone who's spent a lot of money. When I think about where my money would have been better spent in terms of my tokens that I use, I definitely would have been better off with ILV. But it made me start to really think about why I made that decision, right? Like, again, this was my personal money that I had put in, and I spent that on land. And you have to go back to where we were at 2.5 years ago, where us generating, when we sold that land, number one, we didn't sell it at a fixed price, right? Like these people who are like, oh, they price gouged and whatever. It was literally a reverse auction, a Dutch auction, which allowed people to buy at whatever price they wanted. Okay. Now the market priced it in at that $72 million mark, right? Which, again, 90% of that was in SILV2, which needs to be considered. But where it sort of gets frustrating for landholders is when that SILV2 that they used to buy that land was not their money, it was a lot more free flowing. It was easy to spend it. Now that it's the year and 2 years has gone on and there's been delays, right? So that, not to their fault. They thought it would be here and it wasn't. So they were able to use their money quickly, but then they weren't. So that is a factor in it. But when you consider that now, had they just taken those ILV rewards and not the SILV2, they would be in a much better position. And they only just got to start selling their fuel a month ago. So that creates this environment where a huge amount of money was spent on it. And now we've got to get a payback to those people because it was an investment. And how do we do that? But at the same, so there's multiple things that we're doing. We've just hired a new economist. We've just hired a new game designer that is dedicated to Illuvium Zero. There's a ton of new features that we're building into it. There's a ton of ways for you to actually use your fuel, which isn't just selling on the marketplace, which will derive value from your land. And all of those things we're absolutely doing. But I think the biggest thing to consider is, and it's a tough one. Again, bias coming from me, but this is where I want to say, like, I bought $1 million worth of land. Like, I'm 1.5% of those purchases. I'm that guy as well. So if I take off my Illuvium hat and put on my I want my $1 million back hat, I have to look at it and say, I made that decision at the time to spend that money. And it was based on actually doing $150 million in just trading revenue a month. So when I looked at that, I was like, my investor hat was seeing green dollar signs. And I was like, well, this isn't unrealistic at all. But now we're in the opposite of that market, right? And so you see Axie doing $40,000 worth of revenue, not $40 million. And it makes you look back and think, well, I'm never going to get my money back. But the thing to consider here is, if we are successful and the market comes back to where it was, no one's going to be complaining with their land, right? And so that's when you put it into perspective. I know it doesn't make it better and it doesn't feel any better. It's the same as the guy who bought ILV at 1,800 and it's now at 35, right? Nothing is ever going to make that better until we can get back to that point. And that's all we've got to do. And it's not about us saying we want price to go up, we want land price to go up. It's just about making the games better, bringing more people into the ecosystem, and increasing spending is the only way that we're going to appease our investors. And that's our goal. That's it.
I think just on that note, we've talked a lot about the bull run and the market being in a good condition quite a bit today, but obviously the game has to be sustained throughout a bear market as well. It needs to be a good game and get lots of players and lots of revenue in bad market conditions as well. You can't always wait for good market conditions. Like, do you think the game will be good enough for that? What do you think it will take to get there?
Yes, I definitely do. Now, but it's also important to be realistic, right? Like, we need to get to a point where we can, the goal from day one was always get mainstream adoption, right? Like, we have to do that, but we're a ways away from the games being good enough to get mainstream adoption. Once we've spent 4 months on building Gauntlet, and that's the game that we're trying to compete with TFT. It's nowhere near close, right, to being there. Now, give us another 6 months, we start to get a little bit closer. So in the interim, while we're getting the games to be, I would call it mainstream ready, our focus has to be on things like onboarding, being able to allow people to new payment gateways so they can come into the ecosystem, fixing all the minting issues where someone goes, well, I caught that, didn't come into my wallet, fuck this game, I'm out, right? Like, all of these things which have been teething issues of launch, we have to fix up now. And I think genuinely, if we can start fixing these things up and introducing a few more mechanics, which we've talked about over the last sort of like 2 to 3 months, I genuinely think that we can hit break even with the exact same market conditions that we have right now. And that's the goal, right? To get to that $5-6 million a month of revenue, where the DAO is obviously reducing expenditure as well, because we tested marketing. We're definitely not going to go as hard on marketing. That's why you saw that spike. So bringing down spending is a key to what we're trying to achieve here, and also bringing up that revenue. And if we can do that over the next 6 months, which is our target, then we'll hit that break-even point, and that's the goal. Then when the market comes back, and there's the potential of a 10, 50, 100, 500x, whatever crazy shit that happens, you're already in place. That's when things can go parabolic, right? And I know it sounds insane, but if you've been in this space for more than 5 years, you know that it's a possibility. But again, that's the icing on top. Our goal is to, as you say, regardless of market conditions, be able to generate enough revenue while sustaining revenue distributions and reaching a break-even point. That's all we are focused on right now.
So that's exactly what I want to talk about briefly before we get back to some things Sam wants to talk about. But basically, give me as many specifics as you can, okay? When we're talking about getting ready for the market launch, what that looks like to me is alluvial combat, ranked mode for Gauntlet, Gauntlet rewards and things like that. What sort of timeline are we looking for those 3 major features? At least we know Mega Cities is 8 to 12 weeks. That was the 4th big one. But those 3, ranked Gauntlet, Gauntlet reward type stuff, and alluvial combat. When are we looking for that?
So we're release ready for cosmetics in Gauntlet, which I think is going to help out a lot. We're updating the bots in the system, so they're going to be a lot smarter, a lot better. You probably won't even know that you're playing against a bot. There is the Gauntlet lobbies that just went into testing now, which I would say tentatively a couple of weeks. That starts unlocking things like tournaments. The leaderboard stuff is also in production, so it's probably another like week away. I would say by the next sprint, so in the next couple of weeks, we should have a lot of quality of life improvements for Gauntlet, and then we can start focusing on the gameplay stuff, adding in the Ranger and a bunch of other cool elements, which will make the game much, much better.
And overworld combat?
Overworld combat is a tricky one. We're at the moment we're talking about having a co-op mode, a multiplayer mode, which would also utilize combat, but also integrate storyline. So one of the things that I flagged a few months ago was I think there's so much storyline that is literally written. It's an amazing story that I think people are going to love, but the delivery of it, I was very worried about. And now we're here, and there wasn't much we could do about it. There's a lot of work to get that storyline out, but I think the way for us to do it moving forward, where we're actually within our cost base, is a mode which the guys are currently discussing now, where we bring in combat, multiplayer, and story quest lines that are all integrated into like not a single player mode, because it's the wrong way to look at it, but it's like a free to play version of the overworld. Let's call it.
I don't know what to think of that, to be honest. Sam, you're up.
Yeah, okay. Look, guys, we're going to go to the features shortly. I just have a couple of quick questions, hopefully, just about recent hires within Illuvium Labs. Roman is now head of marketing, I believe. Diego is head of economics, and there was a marketing expert, whether that was Roman or not. She was from Call of Duty. So these are big hires. These are very reputable in the space. These people, as far as we're aware. I believe you like to hire senior developers, senior, I guess, employees in general over juniors. Obviously, this would be at a cost. And just in regards to the marketing that's been added to the team, what is the marketing team doing right now? The community has expressed, I would say, some concerns because obviously, in my opinion, the game isn't ready to market. I would say the game might be ready in 2-3 months, depending on when all these, quality of life features and everything else. That's just my opinion. But what is the marketing team doing in the meantime for the next couple of months to market the game, or if they are, if they're not, I'm not sure. But just some insights there would be good.
Yeah, so a lot of what we're working on is the new Alliance program. That has been really successful. And where I want the marketing team to focus on predominantly is going back to being really gritty, less spending. We did an exceptional job over that first 3-year period to get in crypto. Everyone's heard of Illuvium, right? Like it's a mainstay name that I think we did really well on without spending much money. And that's what I want to get back to, is that growth hacky way of marketing and utilizing the tools that we have that aren't our runway necessarily. So things like the tokens that we have there as rewards, and the Alliance program commission, where we can show a direct ROI on bringing someone into the ecosystem. But we need to get better, and we need to put a lot of focus on the people that are in this space, right? Like we spent a bunch of money on, not crazy, but enough to test out. I think it was about 50K on influencers in mainstream, and we're not there. We're not ready yet. There's still needs to be improvements to the games to be able to get there. And what's also not working in our favor is NFTs and Web3 gaming sentiment as a whole is just completely garbage, right? Like it's at a very, very low point, not even to the point where people are curious, which is where we were 4 years ago. There was still people who say this is just the whole space is garbage, but there was enough people who were like, is it garbage? I'm going to go try it out. There's not even that happening, right? So not wasting any money on that until we're mainstream ready is the first focus. And then utilizing the team to go after KOLs, big influencers in the crypto space, using that alliance program to really incentivize new people to come in, refactoring the leaderboard rewards, going heavily into tournaments as soon as we get custom lobbies. I would much prefer if season 3 was a combination of your typical missions and milestones, but then taking a big chunk of that out and saying, this is our tournament fund, and using that to really increase the amount of players in Gauntlet. Because I think if we can get that supply side humming, where people are saying like, finally my alluvials are being bought because people are playing Leviathan, and if there's these huge prize money tournaments in Leviathan, the way that we've set that game up is you really don't want to be going in to a game of Leviathan if you don't have all of the characters. You can, but if you risk someone else pulling a good character, then you're kind of a little bit screwed. So when you're talking about big prize money tournaments, that should incentivize people to have all of the alluvials, and that's going to create the demand from the overworld side. And so that's going to be a focus. And then just the same things that we've been doing over the last 3 years, really pushing the press side of things. We've got great relationships with Cointelegraph and CoinDesk, and getting our email strategy up to scratch. There's been a lot of stuff that we need to do there. So yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that we're doing in the marketing team. But I guess the overarching point that I want to make is we're not going to be actively marketing to mainstream. It's just inside of the crypto space for probably the next 3 to 6 months. But again, I look at this on literally a daily, if not weekly basis, where that strategy might change. And we need to be that agile when it comes to our marketing.
Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thanks to Kieran for jumping on. It's been just over an hour. We have about, I would say, somewhere between 10 and 20 minutes left. We're going to jump into more so the features, guys, that I know you guys want to hear, especially with the Arena, Overworld, Zero. There's been some community questions, which I'm going to throw over to Scoriox. But before we do, just want to get a sentiment on daily active users, monthly active users for the first month. Are these some numbers you would like to share with the community? Is it what you were hoping for? Are you disappointed? Like, obviously, all transparency is probably best here. But yeah, would love to get the take, because obviously we don't see these numbers. It's all probably behind closed doors. And how's it looking? And how do you see the trajectory over the next 3 to 6 months when the game is more so game ready per se?
So there's about 10,000 daily active across the ecosystem, which obviously it's not anywhere near where we wanted it to be. We want to improve that and get it much higher. The paying players is a fraction of that as well. I think there's about 750 people that spend money on a daily basis, might be a little bit less than that. So it's about 10% of our daily actives is generating the amount of revenue, which is actually a good thing, because we can get more paying players in the door. And there's a very high ROI that we get from a new paying player. So that's one of the focuses. And on a monthly basis, it's just over 50,000. I think in total we've had about what are we at? Yeah, 80,000 now in total. And last month was about, give me one sec. Sorry, we've got so many charts now.
So it does sound like that if there's 10,000 daily active users, and sounds like we have like 50 to 80,000 that have come into the loop, I guess. Just more of I guess the game just needs to be built out to make it a bit more sticky. I guess retention rate, if you look at that, that's actually really good. If you have 80,000 people coming to your game and 10,000 people are staying, that if you look at Web 2 data, that is actually very good retention. And spend per head is actually really good. It is Web 3. But by the sounds of things, we just want to amplify that by a substantial margin by the looks of things over the coming months.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not great. Honestly, it's definitely not great, but it's something that we can build on and definitely will over time. But you know, the numbers that we want once we get these games into a place where they're worthy of competing with mainstream, I think are going to far eclipse what we're doing now. But certainly it's a good start. The amount of revenue, same thing, not as much as what we wanted, but it's definitely a good start. And you know, we'll keep on working on it.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep perspective, especially regarding all the other crypto games and things like that. It's even something I didn't even expect that much when I started on YouTube, right? It's like I can only get so many views on an Illuvium video, and that's just the reality of it. Like, it's not going to go past a certain point because only a certain number of people are interested, and that's kind of how crypto gaming and even indie gaming to a lesser extent just kind of works. It sits in its own little niche. So comparing yourselves to others in the same niche is relatively important. I think by that metric, I think Illuvium's doing quite well. Obviously, it'd be nice if we're doing even better, but we're doing decently. So another thing that's been coming up in the chat a lot, and Gypsy asked it on my tweet, is when can landowners use their fuel in the Illuvium overworld? And I think he's referring to essentially transferring it to yourself.
It's imminent. It's very, very close. I don't have an exact date. I literally asked Stuart about this a few hours ago, and yeah, he's saying it's also imminent. It's they've made a build for it, so you know, I'm not sure of the exact release date, but it's there. It's built. It's on a test environment, so it will be deployed very, very soon.
So moving on to Arena, we've had a lot of Arena chat in the chat today on the stream. And the first thing, Paz pointed out something very fair, I think a big sentiment I agree with in the chat just before, where he said that playing without a ranked mode is just, there's no motivation to do it. And basically no single game ever has been released. No multiplayer game has probably ever been released without a ranked mode in the past decade. But what I want to talk about is many in the chat have a variety of opinions regarding Ascendant, leaderboard rewards, and where it should be allocated. Amongst all of our game modes, we have like 7 Arena game modes now. What is the team's specific plan for leaderboards, reward incentives? Do you want to remove any game modes? What's going to happen in the next couple of weeks?
So the focus is obviously still on Gauntlet, and it will be. That's and specifically when it comes to rewards, it will be Leviathan based, right? And not solely. There's obviously going to be tournaments that are purely ranked tournaments, where in order to get in or to qualify, you need to be ranked at a certain level. But then as well, we need to incentivize people to play Leviathan, because that incentivizes people to go out onto the marketplace and buy other people's alluvials. So that is where things sit. There's also, with Gauntlet coming out, there's a bunch of changes coming to Ascendant. We're not abandoning the 1v1 mode, but there's certainly going to be a bunch of changes that are implemented. But for right now, focus is on getting ranked Gauntlet, getting the custom lobbies out, which again, very, very soon. And yeah, that's the main focus.
Are you worried about, because there is different game modes, there's Leviathan, there is normal, there's survival, there's going to be obviously a wide spectrum of Arena game modes very, very soon. Are you worried that just due to the numbers of players that it's going to spread it thin and then it'll be harder to find lobbies? Is it worthwhile, you know, focusing in on maybe 1 or 2 modes, whether that's Ascendant or whether that's the 8-player mode? Yeah, I'd love to get your thoughts on that. That was a community question as well.
Yeah, we're definitely going to zone in on Gauntlet. That's where we think that if you're happy to pay to play a casual game that is a lot more social, that has 8 players, there's a chat, all this kind of stuff. You're going to be more likely to say, now I'm really good at this, I'm going to go and play someone one-on-one. So absolutely. But the first focus is on getting players into Gauntlet. We've had a number of things which have, I guess, disincentivized people to go into Gauntlet matches. If you don't have someone ready to go, you end up coming up against the bots. That gets boring. You don't want to come back to it. And so it just repeats itself. So once we have custom lobbies, I think there's going to be a lot more, plus leaderboards and incentivization. We're going to get people into that Gauntlet mode. And I think naturally people will peel off into the 1v1 who are more of those hardcore arena players. So yeah, we don't want to focus on like play survival, play it. Like you can play all of those, but our attention we want on Gauntlet without a doubt.
Yeah, I think I really like the idea of the bots becoming better, because then it'll be less weird for you to match up with bots if they're actually giving you some level of challenge. Razel asked the question, and I've seen it in the chat, I think by Gatchawade and a few others. Do you have any idea when the arena will be ported to mobile? Obviously, that's huge with the casual gaming perspective you just shared.
The art team's working on it, and the benefit of us porting over to mobile on Arena is it's going to reduce, it's going to optimize the assets that are actually in the overworld right now. So one thing that absolutely kills us is for our daily active users is people that sign up, try to play the game, and they just don't have enough CPU or GPU power to actually play our game. So part of us porting to mobile is going to actually help out all of the games as well, because it'll reduce that level that we're at now, which maybe the game won't look as good for some people, but a functional game is so much more important than how it looks. And that would definitely be one of those learnings over time. If we could do that again, we would definitely drop things down just to be more accessible to people. But we are working on it now. I don't have I don't have a date for you of when it's going to be ready. I would love for it to be ready, sometime early next year, ideally.
Sorry, just to jump in, can you third party this as get another studio to do it, pay them a fee, and then it comes off your hands, or it doesn't work like that?
We tried. We did a proof of concept with someone, and they charge a huge amount of money. They didn't do a very good job on it, and so we just decided that we've got all of the resources we need to be able to do it internally. That was one thing where I'm like, we need this. I don't want to launch with only Zero being on mobile. That was the reason we wanted to push for a free-to-play version of Zero, so we had something. And it's just not possible. I'm sure there are some firms out there where it would be, but no, we're going to do it internally.
Fair.
Yeah, fair enough. I'm looking forward to that. I hope it doesn't take too long. More importantly, I hope you keep us in the loop. Like, if you make serious progress on that, I would love for like communication and announcements to go out to the community so that we can all stay in the loop on the progress of that, because I do think it's a big deal for Illuvium. So with that, we'll move on to the overworld. The first thing is, clearly people love hunting for good stats in the Illuvium overworld. It's like the number one thing people are doing right now when they play the game. When will the quality of life improvements come to the Illuvidex? Not only is it slow as far as websites go, but when can we filter by stats?
Sorry, my computer is finally loaded. So we had 57,683 people last month as our monthly actives. To give you that number, I just wanted to go back and confirm that for you. So the question on the Illuvidex, 100%. It is the bane of my existence is the Illuvidex, and we're certainly going to put a lot more focus on, and not just focus on, we want it to look pretty. Focus on, we want people to buy more things, right? And the thing that I think we get wrong with with the Illuvidex in our marketplace is we are dealing with degenerate people, if you will. They have a lot of money. It's disposable income. We're dealing with people that are time poor, and they just want to know that they're getting value, right? Like when I'm buying something on the marketplace, if you tell me this is good and it's easily identifiable that it's a good thing and I'm not wasting my money, fuck it. I'm going to buy it, and I'm probably going to buy 10 more things. But right now, when I go to the marketplace, I'm like, is it a good deal? Is it not? And it creates this decision paralysis, and it makes people not buy anything, right? Like I know for a fact that there's people sitting on the sidelines right now, like I want to start buying alluvials, but I don't know if it's good value. And so there's a couple of things that we're doing there. There's going to be, we've developed a rating system, which will actually give you an idea based on the traits of an alluvial. It will spit out a number that says, I believe we're going to do it out of 100, but it will say the alluvial's rating. So instead of you needing to look at the chart, which it's not that complex, but again, in the context of someone who's time poor, that has a shit ton of money, that just wants to know I'm getting a good purchase, they don't want to look at all of the different stats on the alluvial. And they also don't know necessarily an atlas that has a lot of health is a really, really good buy. But if it has high damage, it doesn't really affect it as much, and it's not as important. That is when you got 200 characters, it makes it really hard. You sit there and you're like, well, I sort of know that character, but I don't know that one. And it says it's got good stats here, but that might not affect this alluvial. So you sit there and again, you're too paralyzed to make a call. So this rating system will simplify it. It will put each alluvial into a bucket. So we will put a preference on the different traits as better than other ones, depending on which unique alluvial, and it'll spit out a number. So you know, oh, it's 90 out of 100. It's a great value buy. I'm going to swoop it up right now, right? The other thing that we're doing is based on that number, we can derive what the ranking of that alluvial, similar to how you did in Alluvial Master, where you can actually define, and it's not 100% accurate, but you get a pretty good reading of what the ranking of that alluvial is going to be. Out of all 100,000 atlases, I've got the 5th best one. And that ranking is going to be based on the games that we have. So we introduce a new game, then the ratings change slightly, and but you get a really good idea. If I want to play Arena, this atlas right here is the 4th best one, and it's just dropped in price by $100. I'm in. I'm buying it. So that's the type of stuff that we're doing when I talk about the Illuvidex. Not so much, just adding something that looks a little bit better and a few more details. It's not like UI related. It's UX, and it's all about like, how do I know I'm getting a good deal when I buy an alluvial?
But when do you think that'll come out?
So that was something that I wanted them to do like 2 weeks ago, and I think they've completed the algorithm. And I'm not 100% sure when it's coming out, but I know that the algorithm is done. They just need to create those buckets per unique alluvial. So I think that's going to be a process over the next week or two. But yeah, I don't have an exact date for you. Whatever you think it's going to be, put 12 years on it, so I'm guaranteed to not be late. How about that?
Imagine if you were late. All right.
Yeah, okay. So, guys, we've only got like 2 or 3 questions left. It's nearly getting to that 1.5 hour mark. If you have quick questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we might do a quick fire round if you have any. And then maybe me and Scoriox can do a bit of a summary at the end. But I guess in the summary of Overworld, when Illuvium Combat and when is multiplayer for Sanctum Mesa? quick as you like, but I feel like these two things would be really good to have. Personally, I've only played Illuvium for the first 5 days. I haven't jumped back into it since. For me, I'm not an Auto Battler fan. I'm a little bit different than a lot of other people here. And yeah, would love to get a bit of a don't give me dates, but is it we getting it this year? Is it next year? Is shit going haywire? Illuvium Combat and multiplayer for Sanctum Mesa.
We 100% want to have it this year, without a doubt. Yeah.
Okay. And fiat on ramp, I believe that's a topic as well that everyone wants. Obviously, this is stopping gamers getting in, credit cards and everything else. On ramp for fiat.
Yeah, it's actually been built. There's something blocking it from one of the providers. I don't know the exact details, and I don't think it's legal, but it's something at like a weird finance level where we're trying to. Maybe it's in the agreement, but I spoke to Danny about it last week, and it's hopefully going to be sorted out in the next week or so. But yeah, that was one of our, coming out of the release, that was one of our top priorities. Anything that is preventing people to spend money, you can be assured is the top priority.
Fair.
So I have a really big one here that I've wanted to ask for a little while. So let me just give you a little bit of context. Even if you add overworld combat, multiplayer, running around with your friends, shooting rocks, capturing alluvials, everyone who is already here in Illuvium has already caught pretty much all the alluvials, or all the alluvials that they want. And they could probably buy things off the Illuvidex for way cheaper than it would cost them to actually find, say, a Ramfire. They'd probably be able to buy that Ramfire on the Illuvidex way cheaper than it would take them to find it, right? And that even goes for like the next 100,000 players that would buy them off the Illuvidex and come into the ecosystem and things like that. What experience in the overworld will you actually be offering players, since they don't have any need to capture alluvials for themselves? Not yet, unless everyone buys it up eventually. But is there a new experience you're offering people to enjoy in this world?
Well, there's obviously multiple games that we're intending to build over time. As I said, or hinted at, there's the co-op version of, or free version of the overworld that we're discussing at the moment. But I don't think it's really true that all of the alluvials that have been caught are enough stock, if you will, for the players in Leviathan. There's, what is there, 50 Ramfires in the marketplace?
Yeah, for Leviathan, good stats maybe, but for general 1v1 Ascendant, I see what you're saying, but like there aren't that many players right now, and it's hard to gauge that.
I understand that, but like to say, even if we got 100,000 new players in playing Leviathan, there 100% would not be enough alluvials to provide to people who want to purchase them. They just wouldn't, right? Like you would have a lot of people that have 70% of the alluvials, but the tier 5s and the tier 4s, which in Leviathan, when you're getting up to those high stages, they're the ones that you want. There's definitely not enough stock there. So I don't really agree with that. I see where you're going with it, but yeah, all we can do is increase the utility for people to use these alluvials. That's going to be new game modes with our existing stuff and new games in general.
Yeah, perfect. Well, guys, it's getting to the hour-and-a-half mark. I think my takeaway from this, Kieran, thank you for jumping on for a little bit more than we expected to. My takeaway is that everything's coming soon still. I do love Illuvium personally. It's hard, but it's like, if you look at Kieran's side, right, like it's hard to give dates. Like, how do you even say this? And it's not like they're not trying. I've heard from multiple people in the team and other people outside even, they say it's one of the hardest working cultures or team they've ever worked with. Like everyone is absolutely bare to the bone, you know, staying up for 16 hours plus. I'm definitely not taking that away from the team at all. And I think what you guys are doing, I see so much potential. I just hope the next 3 to 6 months really pushes it out to what everyone wants and what we all hope. So I think it's more of a waiting game from my perspective when all these things come out. It's like I said, it's not like you guys aren't working at all. It's not even that. It's just games take time, and there's just there's a lot of bumps along the way. And I guess sentiment with prices, I know a lot of people get emotional when tokens go down and it's not going up. But it would be interesting to see if token was at $500, even if that is overvalued and everything else was up, how people would feel. But I'm hoping and I'm hopeful that the game turns into a really fun game that's sticky, multiplayer, overworld, ascendant, everything else in between. And yeah, that's probably my wrap up. Scoriox, maybe get Kieran to do a bit of a sign off as well. And if there's any other last questions, we could do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks, Kieran, for giving us your time here. We, as people can see, you're not in your normal room back in Sydney. You're having a team meetup right now, and you'll be back to Sydney soon. But you are working right now, and I think pretty much everyone on the team is back to work as well. So we'd love to see that. We're looking forward to updates over the next month or so. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap this up?
No, I get it, and I get this feeling of like when I'm at home, it's literally 12 to 16 hours a day. Literally, I just go to my office and I can do it. And I'm reading all of the sentiment on Twitter. I'm reading all of the sentiment in Discord, on Telegram. I'm speaking to multiple different parties, and I can get ahead of the curve of where people sort of sit there and go, "Oh, we haven't heard from them in a day, and now it's been 2 days. Oh my God, they're going bankrupt." Like I get. I get it. I sort of think it's a little bit insane, but I get it, and I think that's one of the things that I really bring to the table is I can simmer people down a little bit, and when people are freaking out, but at the same time, like you got to understand that we're all human. We needed to have breaks. We went so ridiculously hard to hit that deadline that we set on ourselves, and in a normal gaming world, we would have given ourselves another 12 months and we wouldn't have released anything, and we wouldn't have a community that has our token. And so there wouldn't be the angst of, hey, my thing's gone down and whatever. But that's not what we're living in. And it has a bunch of perks that make things really, really good. And this is just one of those things that I need to make sure in future doesn't happen, where the community gets so negative to the point where they're like, what the fuck's going on here? So I get it. And yeah, we'll certainly make sure that this sort of situation doesn't happen again. We've got the town hall coming next week. I will be back home for that. So I'll be much better positioned to answer any questions that we may not have gone through here. Mm-hmm. So again, it's the same team. We're very transparent. I know a lot of like a small minority like to come out and make a name for themselves and say we're terrible and bad people and against you all and trying to rip you off and all of this kind of bullshit. It's not the case. It never has been. Just if you feel like something hasn't been answered here, or I wasn't direct enough or whatever, jump into that town hall. If you're not comfortable coming on and speaking, I get it. Put a comment in to Rich, and he'll make sure that it gets asked to me, and I'll make sure that I answer it. But again, really appreciate you guys putting this on. I know you do a lot of work behind the scenes for the community, and yeah, we're full steam ahead. There's nothing to be worried about.
All right, and with that,
sorry, are you doing the sign off? You got to do the sign off, right?
I'm doing the thing. All right. And with that, the download is complete.